Welcome, everybody, to this new episode of the Women in Technology Spotlight. Today, I have with me Christel Joy Gaño. She is Senior Marketing Analyst at Dell. She's also a consultant and a blogger. On her blog, The Millennial Warrior, you will find tips and advice on how to become a warrior for your own dreams. Check out the link below. I will also add a link to Christel's LinkedIn profile so you can head over and connect to her. Welcome, Christel.
Hello, thanks a lot for having me on your platform. I feel truly honored to meet you and all of your audience and future audiences. So a little bit about myself. I'm Christel. I have a Filipino background, so I have roots from the Philippines, but I'm currently based in Vienna, Austria. And what led to my current profession in IT is I studied Business Consulting International. So I did my bachelor and my master in the same degree, and I specialized in marketing and sales. But throughout my studies, I always had job roles on the side. So relating to my degree, actually. And so I worked during my degree in marketing roles, in different roles, like in banks, in IT. Also already, most notable would probably be my job position at Samsung Electronics in Germany. And then I took kind of like a break and worked at the bank. I developed a website there. And so it was really quite different because that bank is not like a traditional bank where you would go and enter to the branch if you need something. It would be everything online. So somehow I got back in IT, even though I was working in a bank. And then after that, I joined Dell Technologies, where I am currently working for. So somehow the IT industry always got me back somehow. And on the side, I also like to work for NGOs. So I worked for NGOs in the Philippines, for example, in Ireland, and also in UK and in Denmark. So I'm really passionate about helping people out when it comes to marketing, because I feel like it's an easy way for me to give back to the community. And that also led me during COVID to publish my own website, like you said, Millennial Warrior. And my goal with Millennial Warrior is to help people out. So, regardless their age, you never kind of fully an adult, right? So, I like to help people become financially independent, making it in the career world, what it means to be a woman in IT. So, I write about that also in my blog. And I never imagined that it would grow that big, because I just started officially in January this year, so in 2021. And now I have over 1,000 visitors per month, really from all over the world. So it's quite shocking, honestly. But it's really, I feel so grateful that people can learn something from me and that they share it also with the friends or family and colleagues.
Wow, there was so much in there. I don't even know where to begin. So, what really stuck out was the fact that you have lived in a number of different countries, lived and worked in a number of different countries throughout your life. So, maybe I can ask you what your journey was. How did you get from one country to the other? What's the whole story?
Yeah, so I would consider myself quite blessed. So my parents always made it an effort for me and my brother that we travel and see the world. So we were always kind of like exposed to other cultures in other countries. And so I think a big impact was actually my studies. So in my degree, there were over 20 different nationalities. So I always saw like how different other people think and work and what the different culture is about. So that was like the start of everything, I would say. And then it began when I got my position at Samsung. That's when I moved to Germany. And then after that, oh, actually, prior to that, I also lived in the Philippines for an internship. Yeah, so it actually started in the Philippines, my work journey as in outside of Austria. And after going to the Philippines, I came back to Austria. And then for the mandatory internship, I moved to Germany to work for Samsung. Um, then came back to Austria and for my master's degree. And then I would just work remotely for other countries.
So
Yes.
you say you worked with 20 different cultures throughout your studies, and that was at the University of Vienna, or was it a Fachhochschule? Because
It
that's
was a Fachhochschule, so a University of Applied Sciences in Wiener Neustadt, so Lower Austria.
okay. Tell me a little bit about that, because on the one hand, you say there was a big cultural diversity and that got you into appreciating different cultures. But what was the balance between men and women? Was it like 50-50, or was that more male or more female?
I would say it was quite balanced actually when it comes to genders.
Mhm.
But like you had more men, I would say, who majored in finance and accounting, or more women kind of that majored in marketing and sales. And then throughout the masters, it was more spread. So it was more women joined the finance major and more men joined the marketing and sales major. In terms of culture, as you asked, it was quite interesting because even though it was in Austria, um, I was the one of the three or five, like a handful of Austrians actually in that degree program. So that was kind of funny too. Because usually in high school, I would kind of stick out because of my looks, obviously, and of my cultural background. Um, but it opened up my eyes and my viewpoints also about other people's beliefs and strengths. Um, so that was really inspiring to me to learn from different people that have different backgrounds. And the main lesson that I learned back then was because everyone, like there were people from Slovakia, from Russia, from Thailand, and India. Um, so it was really diverse. And so the main lesson that I learned is you got to speak in the same language. So even though there were other Austrians and there were maybe a group of Slovakians or Hungarians, we always kind of made sure that we would speak in English because even though they have their own languages, it kind of gives a different culture and environment in class, and also when there's no lecture, when you just talk the same language.
Mhm.
So I also took that with me at work because now I also work with a lot of different countries in my current role. And rather than just speaking German, even though the majority of people would understand it, if I know that somebody is not fluent in German or just feels more comfortable, I would just switch to English. Um, and that's also what I take with me when I work with my clients, because a lot of my clients also or partners um, live in Switzerland. So in Switzerland we have French, Italian, German, um, and so I just like tell them, yeah, if you're open to it, let's speak in English rather than in the different canton languages, so we can all understand each other better.
Yeah, you touched on an important topic here, and that's inclusion. And it does mean that you try to create an inclusive environment where everyone can understand what you're talking about, right?
Yes, definitely. And the reason for that, I think, is also my personal upbringing. Like I understand a lot, like the two languages that my parents speak from the Philippines. So that's Ilocano and Tagalog or Filipino. And so whenever I am in the Philippines, I try to speak more English rather than German with my parents because I would want my relatives or neighbors or so to understand me because obviously left. left out if I would just speak German, even though that's the language I speak most of the time with my family in Austria and with my parents. So I really try that people just understand me that are around me, because I know the struggles um, when you are in a country and you don't understand the languages makes such a big difference.
Yeah. I would very much agree with you on that. It's a very important topic. And it also brings me to the question around inclusivity in IT. So you're a woman working in IT, and you've had a history with Samsung and this programming in the of the website and the bank and all that. So what is your experience around inclusivity, apart from you who's obviously making an effort to make everyone feel included? Do you feel this is a topic around when you watch people around you?
Yes, definitely. Definitely at Dell Technologies, inclusivity is very important. It's encouraged by our managers and also other countries. But I would say it's quite different from country to country. So I've been to other offices also from Dell besides Austria. So I've been to the office in Denmark, in Finland, in Morocco, Switzerland, and the list goes on. I do see differences. So, especially in the Nordics, in the northern part of Europe, there's more a balance between genders.
Mhm.
So there are more female in IT. At least that's what I have experienced during my office visits. And in Austria, we try to strive also more in that direction. But I feel it's super important that your managers and the leadership kind of also communicate the importance, right? Because if it just comes from the team, but not from upper management, it's more difficult to implement because you don't understand like the bigger impact it has for other team members. So you try to encourage that too. Um, yeah, so I feel like we still have a lot to go in terms of gender balance. But that's like in general in the IT world, I would say. And also age gap. Like I'm one of the youngest, if not the youngest, all the time in my office and in meetings with partners. So I feel we also have to do more in terms of hiring younger graduates, or because even though there might be people that are young, there are a lot of people that have work experience. So I wouldn't like put such an emphasis on age, because age doesn't mean you don't have work experience, right? So I wish that IT would kind of also encourage more the youngsters out there, because they do have a lot of ideas. Um, and so that's like the biggest difference I would say for me is like the age gap and the gender.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, a very good point, Christel, because diversity is not just men and women. That's something that is, of course, one of the topics, but we have to talk about age diversity. We have to talk about race diversity and all these things as well. So if you want to have true diversity and make everyone feel at home, you definitely need to include everyone. Also, because I feel that, just as you said, young people have ideas that they bring into the tech world. And I think to make tech inclusive and to actually develop technology that represents society as it is, we need to open the doors to all these different people.
Definitely. And also race. So, like when I started 3 years ago at Dell in Austria, I was the only Filipino and I was the only Asian, at least the one that worked at the office. So I do not know about the people remotely, right? Because so many people work for us. And then now I believe we are like four Filipinos or so, if I'm correct. So a handful of Asians. And I do not know if I'm the reason for it, because maybe they saw on social media, oh, there is an Asian, there's a representation of my culture, ethnicity at in this company. So that could also be the reason for it. So I'm kind of also feel sometimes in charge a little bit, to encourage people to apply and work for the IT world, because that's also a little bit a missing race, and different, because like, right, the more different cultures and the more different people you have with different backgrounds, the more ideas, the more competitive the company, and as a whole, the team works more, is more considerate to each other, right?
Mhm. I agree. And you touched on representation, which is such an important point. You have to, for a lot of people, it's important that they can see themselves in someone else who's already there where they want to go. So there are exceptions, like maybe you and me, who will be the first. But then there's other women, for them, it might be easier, other Asians, when they see, oh, there's someone like me who is already in there, and I will just join them. So yeah, very important point, representation. And that reminds me that I also know that you work for Women in Action in Dell, which is also, I think, one of the initiatives to create more diversity and retain that diversity, right?
Absolutely. So, Women in Action is an employee resource group, and I'm one of the board members in Austria. And our goal is to help and support women and men, to work more also with their female coworkers, and to encourage them also, either at work in the office, or when it comes to the private life, when it comes to balancing work and family, right? So that's also a topic that a lot of people um, need to talk about also, because everyone has their private life, right, besides the office. And what I also really enjoy about Women in Action, it's not only about supporting women. So we also invite also men to our meetings, or our leadership series that we have. So it's really important to involve everyone also in our initiative.
Good point, actually, that you have to involve men and create allies and work together. And another thing that stuck out, you talked about private life. So in terms of work-life balance, do you feel that working in tech, working in these big IT vendors, is a good place to create work-life balance? How do you experience this?
Definitely. So, like from all the job roles that I have, even though that's not quite a lot compared to someone in their 40s or 50s, I would say IT is the most flexible, and it's an industry where work life or life work balance is encouraged. Even before this whole world change with the pandemic, some co-workers of ours already worked from home either once a week, or they would just come to the office 3 times during a week or twice during a month.
Mhm.
And there's definitely encouragement. So if I want to take a vacation or I feel like it, usually my manager says, yeah, fine, you're good to go. Obviously, that comes also with trust, that you do your work and don't leave things standing.
Mhm.
Um, but definitely there's a lot of support, for also what I see with my other team members that may have small children. Um, they are encouraged to close the laptop maybe during the day to pick up the kids and then work at some time later if they have the time, and if that's the best schedule for them.
Mhm. Yeah, that's also my experience, that you're in these environments where we work, that people are encouraged to create work-life balance and actually take some time for their family, close their laptops, go and pick up their kids, maybe have lunch with their kids, and then continue working. It's not as rigid as it is in other companies. Yeah. And for me, that's also a big reason why I enjoy working in IT. So I'm glad you also have that experience. So Going back to experience, I just recall that you said that your parents encouraged you and your brother to be open to different cultures. And I remember thinking at that point, I wonder regarding your educational background, did your parents also encourage that you study applied science, or were they more surprised that you chose this, or do they actually know what you're doing? Because I know my mom has no clue what I'm actually doing.
um, yes, I have to laugh there at your sentence because, yeah, I do feel sometimes or a lot of times I don't understand, but like they never say, or like I would say they always have an ear open and listen. And if they don't understand what I'm talking about, they would say, I don't understand. Could you please explain that? But they always have been very open in terms of what I want to study and what I want to do, because the way they raised us, at the end of the day, we're the ones who have to work in that field, right? So no, definitely nobody forced me to study this. And it was really out of interest that I chose my profession. And I'm really appreciative of that, because in Asian culture, there is a lot of pressure. I wouldn't say for everyone, right? But usually you have these jobs where you would say, okay, they got you, your kid has to work as a lawyer or in medicine or something like that. And obviously my parents would have supported me too if I would have chosen that route, but they never forced me to do that. And I feel like the way they raised us, it's quite modern. Um, but it also shows now that both me and my brother are quite happy with our profession. And so we are really grateful. And if we would have been forced to do something different, I don't know if I would be able to say I'm happy with what I'm doing and with what I'm working in my profession.
Yeah, I'm just smiling because the thing with the lawyer and doctor and thing, it's also African parents, they will
Yes.
try to push their kids into these professions where it's clear what you will be doing in the end, you
Mm.
have the status, and so it's very appreciated if you go that route. But it's good to hear that they supported you following your own interests, because in terms of job satisfaction, I think that's really important, that you really choose. um, but that brings me to another question. How did you choose? How did you know that this would be interesting? How did you find this? Because I had no clue, for example, that in Wiener Neustadt you could do
Yeah,
this.
that's actually funny and story and linked to somehow to these biases of what job roles Asian or in your culture should initiate. Because I actually wrote a thesis in high school around medicine and heart diseases and stuff like that, and I was really good in chemistry and biology. So everyone thought that I actually would go into that field. And then somebody gave a lecture from that university, so University of Applied Sciences, in our high school. And that's when I first got exposed, I would say, to that degree and to that university. And I was also quite grateful for that too, because I didn't know back then if that there are other options, other universities where you can study in English too. So I studied in English. I just thought they're just private universities and they're just universities where I would have to move to another country or so. So that's how it happened. And then the great thing about University of Applied Sciences is that you have lectures from the field. So I would have already lectures for lecturers or professors from the US or from Asia that visited, or from other parts of Europe. And they like taught us also about the industries. So the great thing about consulting is there are different industries that you could work for, right? In IT, or also in other fields that are not in IT, like for government or um, other public sectors. And that's then where the interest came from, because some of the lecturers then also said, yeah, there's also opportunity for consulting in IT, and there are opportunities also in other fields. And that's like when I thought, okay, I don't actually have to choose a route, um, and can get a feeling of what is out there in consulting.
Yeah, that's actually really cool that you have this many options open afterwards, and you don't have to immediately choose, because often you don't really already know what you want to do later. You want to try out a couple of things. Um, So looking back on your journey to Dell, are there any recommendations or tips you would give young women who are not entirely sure if this is for them or whether tech is a place where they would want to go? What would you tell them if someone asked you?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have this biases about IT, that you need to know how to program, you need to be an engineer, which is actually not the case, right? And I would tell them, yeah, if you are interested in IT, just apply for that position. And you, as long as you are hardworking and that you're willing to learn by yourself, because you should apply and you have a chance, because IT is a lot about independency and teaching yourself things. Because in IT, especially in IT, you work with other countries, right? And you can teach yourself so many things online through YouTube, through the internet. So if you are willing to learn by yourself independently and to learn from other team members, I highly recommend that you also consider to work in IT.
Mhm. Yes, thank you for that. I think it's important to emphasize that you don't have to have all the skills when you start out. You can learn as long as you're interested. And I think that's one of the most important skills in IT anyway, because things are changing really fast and you always have to acquire new skills. And the other thing, I don't know what you think about this, but I think being communicative is also a big point, right?
Absolutely, yes. I would say communication is really important, and also emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
because you do work with people, with a lot of people. And it's so important that you are able to understand how you are perceived by your team members, and to kind of also get an understanding that everyone has differences, not to take things personally. So besides your what you studied and your degree, it's definitely so important that you're able to work with people, emotional intelligence, and the willingness to learn.
Yeah. Perfect. And that's also a perfect ending, because surprisingly, it's already over a half an hour that we've been talking. And so we're coming to an end of our conversation. I would like to thank you very much for all the insights you gave me into your life and your journey, and also for these tips at the end. Thank you so much, Christel.
Thank you. I had a great time with you, and I didn't even see or recognize that the time just flew by. Really had a great chat with you. And thanks a lot also to you for bringing this channel on YouTube to life and for empowering women to work in IT. So, and at the end of the day, you are driving change, and I'm truly grateful that you have this platform and that you've created this.
Thank you so much for that feedback. That's so lovely. Thank you.